When you think of Mallorca, you probably picture paradise, right? Stunning beaches, crystal clear water. But behind all that beauty, a really strange paradox is playing out. Tourism is absolutely shattering records, yet hotels and restaurants are finding themselves desperately short on people. Let's get into why that is.
So, you've got to ask yourself, how can one of the top tourist destinations in the world, a place literally packed with visitors, be running out of the very people needed to serve them? We're going to unpack the deep-rooted causes behind this headline-grabbing crisis.
Okay, so to really understand what's happening, we have to start with the core contradiction. It's kind of like a classic supply and demand problem, but with a huge twist. The demand for tourism is sky high, but the supply of people willing to do the work, well, that's plummeting. And wow, when you look at the numbers, the picture they paint is pretty stark. On the one hand, hotel occupancy is at an all-time high. But on the other, the labor pool is so shallow that some businesses are even admitting they're lowering their hiring standards just to keep the doors open during the busy season.
So what's really driving this disconnect? Well, the first major factor isn't just about pay or long hours. It's a profound generational shift in what younger people even consider a dream job anymore.
And you know this one quote, which hotel managers across the island keep hearing, man, it just says it all. This isn't just some flippant comment. It is a crystal clear signal of a massive shift in career aspirations for Gen Y and Gen Z. You can see the clash playing out right here. Traditional hospitality often means you're stuck with inflexible shifts and rigid scripts. And that's going head-to-head with this new digital economy that promises flexibility, creative freedom, and, let's be honest, the allure of quick success. For a lot of young people, the old model just can't compete.
And really, it all boils down to what the modern workforce actually values. The intense, seasonal grind of hospitality, where you're working your absolute hardest while everyone else is on vacation, that clashes directly with this growing desire for work-life balance, for purpose, and for professional autonomy. But wait, it's not just about chasing new career dreams. There's a second, super practical reason for this crisis: a massive housing bottleneck that's literally pricing workers right off the island.
Economists actually have a name for this, and it's pretty powerful. They call it the invisible brick. The idea is that this lack of affordable housing acts as a brake on the entire industry, because the essential people it relies on just can't afford to live there anymore.
And this chart just lays the problem bare. Since the year 2000, Mallorca's population has absolutely exploded, but the housing supply has barely kept up. Then you factor in the boom of short-term vacation rentals taking even more units off the market, and you've got a perfect storm for a housing crisis. So what's the end result of all this? A structural talent crisis. And this isn't some temporary dip, it's a deep, long-term problem. I mean, even if someone wants to work in a hotel, if they can't find a place to live, the conversation is over before it even starts. And that affects everything, from recruitment to the quality of service.
So, faced with what is basically an existential threat, the industry isn't just sitting around, right? No way. It's making a major pivot, and it's rolling out some really innovative solutions to fight back for its talent.
Their response is this really smart three-part pivot. First, they're tackling the housing problem head-on. Second, they're completely reinventing what a hospitality job even means. And third, they're partnering up with outside experts to make sure they can still guarantee that 5-star quality.
Okay, first up, they're going for the most direct solution you can possibly imagine. If your staff can't find affordable housing, then you provide it for them. Major hotel chains are now taking matters into their own hands, actually building and managing dedicated employee residences, making housing a core part of the whole compensation package.
Next up, they're tackling the image problem. The industry is working hard to professionalize these roles, trying to transform the idea of a simple service job into a qualified, purpose-driven career that can actually compete with the allure of the digital economy.
And they're building this new career on pillars that speak directly to modern values, things like environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and mastering new technology. They're starting to replace those rigid scripts with a new focus on craft, empowering employees with the autonomy to really shape the guest experience.
And finally, for those really specialized, hard-to-fill roles, hotels are getting super smart. They're using strategic outsourcing, partnering with expert firms for things like luxury concierge. This makes sure guests get that top-tier service without the internal headache of trying to recruit for every single position. All right, so let's zoom out. What does all of this really mean in the bigger picture? Well, this crisis in Mallorca is a powerful case study for the entire future of work.
You know, the biggest lesson from this whole situation in Mallorca is something that really applies to any industry. To attract and keep modern talent, a paycheck just isn't enough anymore. You have to offer a career, one with real purpose, shared values, and a clear path for growth.
And that leaves us with a really big, critical question for the future. As the world of work keeps evolving, is the very definition of a good job shifting? Is it less about the pay and more about the purpose? It's something we're all going to have to think about.